Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, welcome. I'm Dr. Holly, sex and relationship therapist, and this month I am doing something very special, and that is the 12 days of Sexmas, where with each upload I'm giving one quick and dirty but practical tip to help you feel more connected, confident, and tuned into your pleasure. These are the same tools that I teach my clients that are backed by research and delivered in 5 minutes or less. So whether you're trying to bring the spark back, understand your desire, or just make intimacy feel easier and more fun, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. So being as today is day one of my 12 Days of Sexmas series, we're starting with the most essential skill for better sex. And no, it's not a new position or a toy, it's learning how to get comfortable talking about the uncomfortable. Because here's the truth, if you can't talk about sex, it's almost impossible to improve it. And by the end of this video, I'll share one sentence that can instantly make these conversations a lot less awkward and even more connecting, even if you've never talked about sex with anyone else before. So let's start with, why is talking about sex so vulnerable, even with someone we've literally been having sex with? Well, for most of us, it comes down to shame and fear. We grew up in cultures that taught us that sex is private, dirty, or only something you do, not something that you talk about. So when you try to bring it up, your nervous system immediately goes, nope, danger. That's because your brain links sexual conversation with potential rejection or judgment, which can feel way scarier than the physical intimacy itself. But here's the thing, the couples who I work with that have the best sex lives aren't necessarily the most experimental or the most experienced. They're the ones who've learned how to talk about it openly, honestly, and without shame. Let me give you an example. One of my clients, I'll call them Alex and Jamie, were struggling because sex had started to feel routine. They both wanted to spice things up, but every time one of them tried to bring it up, the other would get defensive. What they realized in therapy is that what they weren't avoiding was new experiences, they were avoiding the discomfort of feeling vulnerable or even rejected. When they started practicing small, low-stakes conversations about pleasure, like what they enjoyed about a recent date or what kind of touch felt good to them that week, that openness built a sense of safety. And safety, as it turns out, is the real foundation for desire. So if you want to start talking about sex but don't know how, here are 3 small steps that you can take that make a huge difference. Number 1, start outside the bedroom. It's way easier to talk about sex when you're not about to have it. So try bringing it up somewhere neutral, like on a walk or in the car or while making dinner. Number 2, lead with curiosity, not criticism. Instead of saying things like, we never have sex anymore, try, I miss feeling close to you, or how do you feel about our intimacy lately? When you focus on connection instead of a complaint, the other person can actually hear you and feel a lot safer to be vulnerable with you. Number 3, use the sandwich method. Start with something positive, like, I really love when you blank. Then add your request in the middle, like, would you be open to trying blank? And end with reassurance, like, I love exploring this with you. It's a simple way to give feedback that really works. Now, remember that one sentence I promised at the beginning of the video to help make these conversations easier? Well, here it is. You could try saying something like, this feels a little awkward to bring up, but I really care about our connection and I want us to talk about this. That one sentence lowers defenses because it names the discomfort and the intention. It's vulnerable and honest all at the same time. The more you practice these conversations, the less awkward they become. You'll start to realize that the things that you were afraid to say are actually the very things that bring the two of you closer. So if you take one thing from today's video, let it be this. Talking about sex is sex. It's emotional foreplay. It's how you build trust, safety, and anticipation, and that's what makes everything else better. Welcome back to day 2 of the 12 days of Sexmas. Today we're talking about one of the most underrated sex tips ever. working out. But before you roll your eyes and say, great, another person telling me to exercise, stay with me because I'm not talking about getting a six-pack. I'm talking about building sexual energy, confidence, and connection through movement. Let's be honest. We live in a world where stress, screens, and sitting all day absolutely wrecks our libidos. We get stuck in our heads and completely disconnected from our bodies. And when your body is running on stress hormones, it's basically impossible to shift into a relaxed, open state that's needed for arousal. So if sex has felt more like a task than something that you crave, movement might be your missing link. And here's why. When you work out, your body releases endorphins and dopamine, those feel-good chemicals that also fire during sex. It literally trains your body to associate physical movement with pleasure. Plus, exercise increases blood flow, and not just to your muscles, but to your genitals too. That means stronger erections, better lubrication, and more sensitivity overall. But the biggest benefit, confidence. When you move your body regularly, you start to feel at home in it. You stop worrying about how it looks and start trusting how it feels. And when you feel strong and embodied, that shows up in your energy in bed and out of it. For example, one of my clients once said, I didn't realize how numb I had become to my body until I started yoga. She wasn't talking about flexibility, but she was talking about presence. For the first time in years, she felt connected to her breath and her sensuality. And guess what? Her desire came back, not because she had lost weight or became more flexible, but because she learned to feel again. Also, I often ask clients when they have had the best sexual experiences to tell me a little bit about how they felt about their bodies. 9 times out of 10, people will say that during the best times that they've engaged in sex, these are some of the best times that they have felt confident in their bodies. So again, confidence is one of the best boosters to your sex life that can result from increased working out. That said, here are 3 simple ways to move your body for better sex. Number 1, choose pleasure over punishment. Don't force yourself to do a workout that you hate. I mean, if you like CrossFit, great, but if not, try dancing in your kitchen, going for walks, or doing some yoga or simple stretching. You want to do movement that you actually enjoy so that you'll actually repeat it. Number 2, focus on breath. The more connected you are to your breathing, the easier it is to stay present during sex. Try syncing breath with movement. Even just a few minutes a day can help. And number 3, move with intention. Ask yourself, what do I want to be feeling right now? Do I want to feel strong, grounded, or sensual? Let your movement reflect that. The point isn't to change your body, it's to come home to it. So if your libido's been low, don't start with pressure or performance, start with presence. Move a little, breathe deeper, and feel yourself come back to your body so that your body can come alive again. And this is day 3 of the 12 days of Sexmas. Today's topic is one that comes up with almost every client that I see, and that is desire mismatch. One partner wants sex more often, and the other not as much. Cue the frustration, the guilt, and the story that something must be wrong, and usually with the low desire partner. But what if it's not a mismatch at all, just a different wiring? Here's the truth. There are 2 main desire styles, and understanding which one fits you can change your relationship with sex forever. The first is spontaneous desire. That's the I see you, I want you kind that we see in the movies and that media teaches us is normal. The second is responsive desire, where desire emerges in response to stimulation, connection, or context. You don't feel it first, but it builds. Most people, especially women, fall into the responsive category, and yet we live in a culture that tells us that we should be spontaneously turned on all the time, which sets so many people up for shame. I had a client, let's call her Mia, who said, I just never feel like having sex anymore. When we explored her day, we discovered that she was juggling work, kids, her to-do list, and everything else that was on her plate. And by the time that she crawled into bed, she was exhausted. But once she and her partner slowed down, started cuddling, and engaging in non-sexual touch, desire showed up for her. That's responsive desire. It's desire that isn't missing, it just needs the right conditions to heat up. So here's some quick homework for you. Number 1, identify your style. Ask yourself, do I want sex out of the blue, or is it usually after I'm connecting with my partner or even after I start getting some sort of sexual stimulation? Number 2, once you know your style, share it with your partner. Understanding each other's desire patterns helps you to meet in the middle with no blame, no shame, and no pressure. And number 3, set the stage. If you're responsive, create conditions that invite desire, places that are calm, comfortable, and connecting. The goal isn't to force desire, but it's to understand it and create the conditions in which it can naturally thrive. Because when you stop judging yourself for not feeling in the mood all the time, you make space for desire to naturally unfold. So if you've ever felt like your desire was broken or disconnected, take a breath and know that you are not alone. You might just need a different kind of spark or even a little bit more time to preheat your oven for desire to catch up. And this is day 4 of the 12 days of Sexmas. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is sexual motivation. Because when you understand why you want sex, it changes everything. The pressure, the guilt, and even the way that you connect with your partner. So often, people come to my office saying, I just don't have a sex drive anymore. And I always ask, when you do want sex, what's usually behind it? And they'll see things like to feel close, to relax, or to connect, or even to feel loved. These are all valid reasons for wanting to have sex, yet most of us think we're only supposed to want it out of pure lust or when the mood strikes. And research backs this up. A study by Messon and Buss found that there are over 200 different reasons that people have sex, from love and attraction, to boredom and stress relief, and to making a baby. That means that your desire is multifaceted, and that's actually really good news. Think about it this way. Sex is a language, and every time you engage in it, you're saying something different. Sometimes it says, I want you. Sometimes it says, I need comfort. And sometimes it says, I want to feel connected. And sometimes we have previous motivations or associations with sex that can get in the way with our current sex life. So it's helpful to look at what your current motivation is. For example, I had a client, let's call him Chris, who had 2 small kids, and for a long time, the only reason that he and his wife were having sex was to get pregnant. And during that whole chapter, sex didn't feel sexy at all. It was scheduled around ovulation, outcome, and he even told me that he felt like a breeder. So when Chris's kids got older and pregnancy was no longer the goal, he didn't feel connected to his sexual self anymore. That old association, sex as a task or as a job, was still in the way. But once we explored his current motivations for sex, things like wanting to feel close to his wife, to connect with her in a way that nobody else gets to, or to experience intimacy instead of obligation, everything started to shift. He was able to rewrite that internal script, and sex became enjoyable again. Not something that he performed, but something he shared and could actually look forward to. So here's your reflection for today. Number 1, get curious about your why. Next time you want sex, or don't, ask yourself, what feeling am I seeking? Number 2, communicate that openly. If you want to feel close, or want to unwind, or just be intimate when you're turned on, let your partner know. And number 3, let go of the hierarchy of reasons. There's no right reason to want sex, and every reason is an opportunity for connection. When you understand your motivation, sex stops being something that you should do and becomes something that feels aligned with what you actually want and need. And if you're interested in learning more about your own sexual motivations, I'll leave a link to one of the worksheets that I like to use to help clients explore their sexual motivations in the description down below. So if you've been chasing the right mood, maybe it's time to start chasing meaning instead. If you've ever caught yourself thinking, the sex is great when we have it, but I feel like I'm never in the mood. Well, you're not alone. But here's the secret. Your arousal might not be missing. It might just be waiting for you to warm it up. And this is day 5 of the 12 days of Sexmas, where I share 12 short, practical tips to help bring more pleasure, ease, and confidence into your sex life. Today we're talking about how to turn yourself on, because waiting for someone else to do it leaves all the power in their hands, and how fun is that? So here's the problem. Most people think that arousal should just happen, but sexual desire is much like a muscle. If you don't use it, it can weaken. And in a world full of stress, parenting, work deadlines, and phone notifications, your body often needs this little help in switching from the doing mode to the feeling mode. So how do you do that? Well, here are 3 science-backed ways to reignite your own arousal. Number 1, stimulate your senses. Your brain is your biggest sex organ and it loves sensory data. You can play with texture, scent, sound, silk sheets, candles, a playlist that helps make you feel powerful or connected to your eroticism, anything that helps put you into that mode. When your environment says relax or says that it's sexy time, your body listens. Number 2, feed your erotic imagination. Fantasy isn't betrayal, it's creativity. Research from the Kinsey Institute shows that most people's fantasies are about emotional connection, novelty, or feeling desired. Use that data as an opportunity to create desire in yourself. You could do this by reading erotica, or watching a spicy movie, or even listening to a steamy romance novel in your car on the way home. That way, you're already getting your mind aroused so that your body can follow. And number 3, practice mindful self-touch. This isn't about racing towards orgasm, it's about exploring what actually feels good today. You can touch your arms, your legs, your stomach, slowly and curiously without expectation. The goal here is to retrain your body to notice pleasure. For example, one client of mine said that she used to think that self-pleasure was something that she had to hide. Now it's how she's able to reconnect with herself after a long day. That shift from secrecy to self-connection changed how she felt and how she showed up for both her and her partner. Also, it allowed her to turn herself on, and when you start turning yourself on, you stop chasing someone else's version of sexy and start building your own. And if you're someone who experiences responsive desire, like we discussed in day 3 of the Sexmas series, you might need that stimulation first in order for desire to follow. So if it feels good, use it. You might be surprised by how quickly the mind catches up when you start arousing the body. And welcome to day 6 of the 12 days of Sexmas. Today, we're unpacking one of my favorite models of sex research, the dual control model of sexual response, aka our brakes and accelerators. Think of your sexual response system like a car. You have an accelerator that responds to turn-ons and a brake that reacts to turn-offs. Most of us think that we have a low sex drive, but really we just have a heavy foot on the brake. So what pushes that brake? Well, think about all the things that cause you to not be in the mood for sex. For me, it's stress, a dirty house, dishes in the sink, my kids, and sheer exhaustion. It could also be things like feeling unsafe or judged, body image worries, or relationship stress. Accelerators, on the other hand, are the things that turn us on or get us in the mood. This could be things like emotional closeness, novelty in play, feeling wanted, and feeling relaxed. A lot of my clients tell me that they have a low sex drive, but when we look closer, we realize that they just don't have their foot on the accelerator hard enough, or more often, they have their foot too hard on the brakes. For example, one client told me that she had no libido, but when we looked a bit closer, we realized that she was constantly stressed and scrolling emails in bed. Once she started leaving her phone outside of the bedroom and scheduling time to decompress, she was able to make room for herself to breathe, and her desire came back. I think about it like hacking the system. Once you know your brakes and accelerators, you can naturally set the conditions to take the foot off the brake and lean more into the gas. So here's how to work with your system. Number 1, identify your brakes. Ask, what kills my arousal fastest? Is it stress, resentment, clutter, something else? Number 2, examine and strengthen your accelerators. List what helps you to feel connected and sexy. Is it laughter, music, eye contact, feeling emotionally connected to your partner? Once you know the accelerators, you can intentionally build more of those moments in. And number 3, stop trying to force it. You can't force desire through sheer willpower. You have to create the conditions where it can bloom based on your unique brakes and accelerators. When you learn them, you can finally understand that libido isn't something that is or isn't. It's a system that you can tune and adjust. And if you want to better understand your own brakes and accelerators, click the link in the description below where I'll be sharing my free worksheet where you can check that out on your own. Listen up. Using a sex toy doesn't mean that something's wrong with your sex life. It means that you're curious enough to make it even better. Welcome to day 7 of the 12 days of Sexmas, where today I'm normalizing pleasure and talking about why toys belong in every nightstand. Here's the thing. Somewhere along the way, sex toys got labeled as replacements instead of enhancements. I can't tell you how many clients I've had whisper to me that they want to try a vibrator, but they're scared to tell their partner. But the truth is, couples who use toys together often report higher sexual satisfaction and better communication. So let's talk about why. Number 1, toys reduce pressure. They take the focus off of performance and put it on exploration. Oftentimes, and especially in cis-het relationships, men are the ones responsible for performing or pleasing their women. But with sex toys, no one person has to do it all. And that allows for less pressure, more relaxation, and a lot more fun. Number 2, sex toys teach you about your body. Vibration, suction, or pressure can reveal the different types of stimulation that you actually like. That knowledge translates directly into better partnered sex because once you know what you like when you are using a sex toy alone, you can communicate that to your partner and thus better your experience of partnered sex. And number 3, they expand pleasure options. Think of toys as instruments in your pleasure band. Each one adds a new sound. Vibrators, wands, suction toys, cock rings, and partner devices, there's something in it for every body. I had a couple once who were both so nervous about sex toys, but after we reframed it as a shared adventure, they picked one out together, and within weeks, their communication and their connection completely transformed. Talking about toys allowed them to break the ice, and once you're able to talk directly and openly about sex, you can talk about pretty much anything. Here's my advice for new sex toy users. If you're new, start simple. A small external vibrator, a body-safe lube, and a spirit of curiosity are all that you need. No agenda, no expectation, just a fun little scavenger hunt of sorts. So here's your challenge. Instead of asking, should we use sex toys? Ask, which one do you want to try first? You can have all the chemistry in the world, but if your bedroom feels like an office, it's not exactly setting the mood. And welcome to day 8 of the 12 days of Sexmas. Today, we're talking about something that most people overlook, and that is your environment, because your brain can't feel turned on when it's busy stuck in to-do list mode. And here's what I mean by that. If your nightstand is stacked with laundry, baby monitors, mail, bright lights, or your phone full of work emails, your nervous system isn't thinking about pleasure, it's thinking tasks. And it's hard to feel sexy when your environment is literally screaming responsibility. Your space is a mirror of your state of mind. So if you want your body to relax and open up to desire, your space has to signal safety, calm, and play. So here are 3 simple ways to make your room sexier, no renovations required. Number 1, declutter the mood killers. Phones, laptops, unfolded clothes, and all that creates mental noise. Try making your bedroom a no-tech zone, even if it's just for one night of the week. You might be surprised by how much easier it is to connect when you're not half scrolling through TikTok all night long. Number 2, engage your senses. Lighting, scent, sound, and texture are the fastest cues to your brain for arousal. You can use a warm, low lighting, a candle, soft sheets, or even a playlist that makes you feel grounded and sets the tone for your bedroom. And number 3, reclaim your space as a sensual zone. Stop making your bedroom a multi-purpose room. It's not for folding laundry or watching TV, it's your sanctuary for rest, intimacy, and connection. One of my clients told me that she and her partner hadn't had sex in weeks, and when I asked them what their bedroom looked like, she laughed and said, "Honestly, it's a disaster." They did one thing that night, and that was clean up. They lit a candle and they left their phones in another room. That small shift created space for intimacy that had been missing for months. The takeaway: you don't need to buy satin sheets or red light bulbs to have a sexy space. You just need to remove the noise, so your brain has room for desire and for play. You schedule meetings, workouts, even dentist appointments, but schedule sex? For most people, that sounds painfully unsexy. But what if I told you that it's one of the most powerful ways that you can bring the spark back? Welcome to day 9 of the 12 days of Sexmas. Today, we're debunking the myth that great sex has to be spontaneous and exploring why planning it can actually make it better. You see, the problem is, in the early days of relationships, sex feels effortless. You have novelty, anticipation, and fewer distractions. But over time, life piles on. Kids, work, stress, politics, and suddenly the only thing spontaneous about your sex life is how rarely it happens. When couples stop having sex, they usually think that it's a desire problem, but oftentimes it's a logistics problem. Think about it. We live in an overscheduled world. If you don't plan for intimacy, it just won't happen. So here's why scheduling sex actually works. Number 1, anticipation is foreplay. When something's on your calendar, you start thinking about it ahead of time, and that mental buildup can make the experience even hotter. It's like pre-ordering a new album or video game or planning on attending a music festival. Part of the excitement is in the anticipation of waiting for it to arrive. Number 2, it removes pressure. Instead of one partner feeling constantly rejected and the other feeling constantly guilty, scheduling creates predictability and safety amongst both of you. And number 3, it makes intimacy intentional. Instead of waiting for the mood to strike, you intentionally create it. And when I say schedule sex, I don't necessarily mean writing sex on the calendar and planning for penetration. One of my favorite couples in therapy started scheduling a weekly touch night. And for this night, sometimes it led to sex and sometimes it didn't. But the consistency and intentionality of being together without distraction transformed their relationship. They said it felt like having a date with their connection again. So, if you're still resistant, try a little reframe. You're not scheduling sex, you're scheduling pleasure. You can call it connection time, intimacy hour, or slow Sunday. Take the performance pressure off and let curiosity lead the way. So no, planned sex isn't boring. It's intentional, connected, and often way more fulfilling. If you and your partner have felt disconnected, maybe the sex feels off or the spark just isn't there, the fix might not be more talking, it might be more touching. And welcome to day 10 of the 12 days of Sexmas, where I share quick, practical tools to help you rebuild desire and connection. Today, we're talking about mindful touch, a simple, research-backed way to reconnect physically and emotionally without pressure or performance. Here's what often happens in relationships. Over time, touch starts to disappear unless it's leading to sex. So even something as small as a hug or a shoulder squeeze can start to feel loaded, like it has to lead to somewhere. And when that happens, you lose one of the most powerful forms of bonding your relationship has: touch. You see, touch is your nervous system's way of saying you're safe. It releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and helps your body to relax enough to experience arousal. Without that safety, desire can't even begin to grow. So how do you bring mindful touch back? Try this exercise inspired by sensate focus, a classic technique in sex therapy developed by Masters and Johnson. Step 1, set aside 10 to 15 minutes of time. No agenda, no goal, just presence. Step 2, decide who's going to be the giver and who is going to be the receiver of touch. Then the giver gives and the receiver receives, only focusing on your experiences and making sure that your partner is comfortable. And step 3, switch roles. While you are engaging in this touch, it's important to focus on sensation, like warmth, pressure, texture, rather than outcome or touching to please the other person. It might sound simple, but it's one of the fastest ways to rebuild connection and take the pressure off of touch, because this exercise is not about sex, it's about your senses. I also often recommend building in small touch rituals throughout the day, especially if both you and your partner work from home. You see, pre-pandemic, there was more of a natural separation and perhaps a ritual of touch when one or both partners left the house for work. Maybe a kiss goodbye or a welcome home hug. But when you are both cooped up at home all day, you can forget those little points of connection. So try and intentionally add a little playful, non-sexual touch in throughout the day, like snuggling under the covers for a few minutes before you get out of bed, or a random hug mid-afternoon, a goodnight kiss, or a playful pat on the butt when you both naturally meet up in the kitchen. Often, things start feeling good again when you stop trying to have sex and just start touching. So if you've been feeling disconnected, remember, intimacy starts long before you enter the bedroom. Touch is the bridge that brings you back home to your body and to your partner. If you think that sex only counts when there's penetration or orgasm, you're missing out on about 90% of the pleasure. Welcome to day 11 of the 12 days of Sexmas, where I share practical tips to help you create a more satisfying, connected, and shame-free sex life. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite mindset shifts, expanding your definition of sex. You see, many of us grew up with a very narrow script. Sex equals penetration, preferably ending in simultaneous orgasm. And if that doesn't happen, it somehow didn't count. But here's the thing, that definition wasn't created for pleasure, it was created for reproduction. And when we measure our sexual success by that standard, we set ourselves up for disappointment, anxiety, and disconnect. Let me tell you about one of my clients, Sarah. She came to therapy feeling broken because intercourse had become painful after giving birth to their child. She and her partner had stopped engaging in intimacy or being intimate altogether because, in her words, if we're not having sex, what's the point? When I asked her what sex meant to her, she said, well, penetration, of course. When we started to work on redefining sex as anything that creates connection, pleasure, and presence, things started to shift. Within weeks, she said, we're having more fun and more intimacy than we've had in years, even without penetration. And that right there is the power of redefining. Here's how you can start to do the same thing. Number one, think of sex as a menu, not a meal. Instead of all or nothing, explore everything from sensual massage and oral sex to mutual pleasure and erotic play. You can have a 5-course meal experience or just an appetizer, and both can be incredibly satisfying. Number two, focus on connection, not climax. When you stop chasing orgasm as the goal, you create more space for exploration, laughter, and curiosity. And number three, ask your partner this question. What would feel connecting or pleasurable for us tonight? It might be touching, cuddling, talking, or kissing, and all of that absolutely counts. And research supports this. Couples who focus on sexual satisfaction instead of performance report a higher long-term happiness and lower sexual anxiety. So if you've been stuck in all or nothing sex mindset, here's your invitation to throw out the old script and rewrite one that works for you. Because sex isn't about doing it right, it's about doing what feels right for you. You know what kills great sex faster than anything? Pressure. The pressure to perform, to please, to look a certain way, or make sure everyone finishes on time. But the truth is, pressure and pleasure can't coexist. And welcome to day 12, the final day of the 12 days of Sexmas. Over the past 12 days, we've talked about communication, desire, arousal, and connection, but today we're ending with what I think is the most important lesson of all: let go of the perfect. Because the goal of sex isn't to perform, it's to connect. Here's the problem. When you are constantly evaluating yourself, like, do I look okay? Am I doing this right? Are they enjoying this? Your brain shifts from the pleasure center to the judgment center, and that kills arousal. This is what we call spectatoring, where you are watching yourself instead of feeling yourself. It's one of the most common barriers that I see in my therapy practice. For example, one of my clients, I'll call her Jess, told me that she used to fake orgasms just to get it over with. She said, "I thought sex was supposed to be like the movies and I was supposed to look a certain way and I was just doing a terrible job at it, so I just faked it to get it over with." When she started focusing on what felt good instead of looking good, everything changed. She stopped performing and started experiencing, and guess what? She actually started enjoying it and having real orgasms. So, how do you shift from performance to presence? Number one, slow down. The more you rush, the less you feel. So give yourself permission to linger, explore, take up some time. Number two, focus on sensation. What does your skin feel like? Your breath, the rhythm of your partner's touch. That's mindfulness, and that is one of the most underrated sex skills that there is. And number three, drop the scorecard. There's no right way, no wrong way, and no finish line when it comes to sex. Pleasure doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real. You see, here's the truth. The best sex isn't perfect. It's playful. It's two people or more being fully present, curious, and connected. So as you move out of the holidays or into any season of your life, remember, pleasure doesn't come from getting it right. It comes from letting go. Thanks so much for joining me for the 12 Days of Sexmas, and if you haven't already, make sure that you check out the rest of the series for quick tidbits on how to improve your sex life. And if you found the series helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share it with someone who deserves a little bit more pleasure in their life. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and remember, you deserve a healthy, happy, and pleasurable life.